patriot and martyr, Ustad Abdul'ali Mzari. Now friends, we can look around the world at every country over many decades and centuries of history, and we can see how bad political leadership damages our world. Political leaders who divide their people instead of uniting them. Political leaders who pursue private gain instead of the public good. Political leaders who advance their own ambitions by scapegoating and discriminating against groups of people in their society. And Afghanistan has had more than its fair share of bad political leadership. But it's everywhere in the world. Right now you can see it in the White House. We see elements of it in our own country here. So today, it's really important that we remember and commemorate someone who was a shining example of good political leadership. And everything that I've been able to learn about Abdul'ali Mzari is that he was one such leader. He united his people. He was famous for saying that to be Hazara would not be a crime anymore in Afghanistan. He stood up to the systematic, historic oppression and discrimination that the Hazara people have experienced for so long. He was a pragmatic nationalist. He stood up for human rights, including for the rights of women and girls. And so we remember him for that. But when we gather together to remember people who have passed, I always think of the words of the great labor activist Joe Hill, an American labor activist in the early 20th century. And he said, "Don't mourn, organize." He was saying, don't just grieve for the dead, but actually organize and fight for the living. And I think that is the spirit as we remember the life and the work of Abdul'ali Mzari, that we must take his memory as a call to action. And notwithstanding the long decades and centuries, actually, of genocidal discrimination and violence against the Hazara people, the oppressive, medieval, theocratic Taliban state that denies its citizens even the most basic human rights. We must continue to organize and to resist, to fight for freedom, to fight for the human rights of everybody, to live free from arbitrary violence, to exercise democratic freedoms, for women and girls in Afghanistan today to be visible, for their voices to be heard, to have the right to education, and for people like the Hazara and other ethnic groups in Afghanistan to live free from discrimination and violence and persecution. And I believe, friends, that those things are just as important to the global Hazara diaspora all over the world and here in New Zealand today, as they are for the people living in Afghanistan. And I'll tell you this, they are for your friends and allies here in New Zealand and around the world. Tashakur.